A landslide exposed something buried under 600 years of ice. Whatever sealed it in there wasn't trying to preserve it. They were trying to keep it from getting out. Subscribe now, because this story only gets worse the deeper into that mountain we went. 2 years ago, I was part of a 5-person research team sent to a remote mountain range in Eastern Europe after a major landslide exposed the entrance to what looked like an ancient stone structure, buried under centuries of ice and rock. Our job was simple on paper: reach the site before word spread publicly, document what we found, and determine whether it warranted a full archaeological expedition. We had 4 days before an incoming storm would seal the mountain pass until spring. Our team lead, a geologist named Anton, briefed us on the approach. The structure had been sealed deliberately, cut directly into solid rock, and reinforced from the outside with stonework unlike anything in the surrounding region. Not a natural cave, not a tomb built for honor, but something constructed specifically to keep whatever was inside from getting out. None of us took that distinction as seriously as we should have. We reached the entrance on the second day, a narrow fissure widened just enough by the landslide to allow a single person through at a time. Inside, the temperature dropped far more sharply than the surrounding ice should have accounted for, and the deeper passage revealed carvings along the walls, deliberate, methodical, depicting what looked like ritual restraint rather than worship. Whoever built this hadn't been honoring what they buried here, they'd been containing it. At the chamber's center, encased in ice so clear it seemed almost deliberate, was a shape none of us could immediately identify, humanoid in general proportion, but wrong in ways that unsettled everyone the moment we saw it directly. Our youngest member, a climate researcher named Priya, refused to get within 10 feet of it, insisting something about it made her physically ill to look at for more than a few seconds. That night, camped just inside the outer chamber to avoid the worsening weather outside, we heard the first sound, a low groaning shift deep within the ice itself, like something enormous settling after a very long stillness. Anton dismissed it as simple ice movement, common in structures under this much accumulated pressure. None of us fully believed him, but none of us had a better explanation either. By the third morning, our equipment technician, a quiet man named Felix, was gone. No struggle, no sound overnight that any of us had noticed, just an empty sleeping bag and a trail of disturbed ice leading deeper into the structure rather than back toward the entrance. We searched as a group, refusing to split up, following the trail until it simply stopped at a section of solid ice wall with no visible passage beyond it. Anton insisted we press forward with our original mission despite what had happened, citing the scientific significance of the find, unwilling to abandon it based on what he called an unexplained but rationally explicable disappearance. Priya argued forcefully that we needed to leave immediately, regardless of the storm, regardless of the mission. The team fractured there in that frozen chamber, exhausted and afraid, unable to agree on anything except that the ice at the chamber's center looked different than it had the day before, thinner in places, as though something inside it were slowly working its way free rather than remaining sealed. We pressed forward as a group despite the disagreement, moving cautiously, checking constantly behind us. That was when Anton disappeared, mid-sentence, mid-stride, without any sound at all, as though the space he'd occupied simply closed around the absence of him. Only Priya, myself, and our final team member Desmond remained. We stopped attempting to document anything further, moving purely toward survival, guided only by our need to reach the entrance before the storm sealed it entirely. The ice groaned continuously now, shifting audibly with every step we took, as though the structure itself understood exactly how close we were to escaping. We reached the fissure entrance just as the storm began in earnest, squeezing through one at a time as the passage narrowed further with new ice forming rapidly around its edges, sealing behind us as though the mountain itself was actively working to close the wound the landslide had opened. Search teams sent after the storm cleared found no trace of Anton or Felix, and no further trace of the chamber itself. The entrance had resealed so completely that experts later argued whether it had ever truly been breached at all, or whether the landslide had simply exposed and then reburied a section of solid rock indistinguishable from the mountain around it. I think about that ice sometimes, how deliberately thin it had grown by the time we finally ran, and how certain I remain that whatever we found wasn't ancient in the way we understand history, but ancient in the way certain things are simply always waiting, patient enough to measure survival in centuries rather than days, content to let the mountain do the sealing for it until someone eventually, inevitably, breaks through again.